May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be free from harm. May all beings love life. May all beings awaken. Welcome to another Cuke Audio podcast. I pray that you and yours are safe and comfortable, free from economic hardship, and able to get out and do whatever it is you want within the limitations of the universal precept of do as little harm as possible. This is another rerun like we had last night because the studio got painted today, and now everything's discombobulated. But the construction work and all that's been going on for the last 6 weeks ended today, faster than they said it would, and actually cheaper than they said it would. And on top of that, they did a ton of other stuff all around the house. So it was great. We're very satisfied. And I wish to thank the anonymous donor who made it possible to build this new family room. And I'd like to thank the U.S. government for providing the rest of the funds necessary. This, what's going to follow now is the first, it's an excerpt from the first podcast that I made. I think it was back on April 1st of 2020. When I say I mean I'm D.C. Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives. And so April 1st, yeah, I think that was the first one. So that was in the early podcasts were like a variety show. They had all sorts of stuff. So this segment is called Nyepi Bloodbath. And it'll be self-explanatory. So we're going to go right into it now because this is Life in Bali Day, and which is one day a week, Thursdays. And Nyepi is definitely part of life in Bali, and occasionally there's a bloodbath. Okay, thanks a lot. And I'm going to start it off just the way this section started off. Okay, later.
We just had Nyepi last Wednesday, March 25th. Nyepi happens the day before the traditional New Year on what's called the Saka calendar. It's Hindu and mainly celebrated in Bali, but it's a public holiday in Indonesia. More than that, though, it's not a normal holiday. You're not supposed to have light or fire. It's a day and night in the dark for fasting and meditation. And it's illegal to go out, and there are sentries who can catch you and herd you back home and arrest you if you resist. It's the only place in the world where the airport closes. The airport doesn't have a lot of traffic these days anyway, but living a half hour from it, I know there are some flights. I guess they're cargo? A lot of Bule or foreigners leave or go to hotels to continue some semblance of normal life. Katrinka and I love Nyepi. My favorite thing to do on Nyepi is to sneak out in the dark and look at the stars. Where we lived the first 3 years here, there was a nice big swimming pool at the hotel next door we could use, and it was a walk straight out the door of our apartment for about 50 feet. I'd walk over there in the dark, get in the water, and lie on my back and look at the stars so revealed by the darkness of Bali. Really, everything's dark. Hotels can do what they want inside, but can't cast light out. So it's a rare night sky, like being in the Rocky Mountains in the States on a summer night. Sometimes it's cloudy here for Nyepi, and that's too bad. But sometimes it's clear. That's magic. Everyone cheats, I hear. I do. This year, I went outside the gate and tiptoed down our little dead-end street to the side street and laid down on the asphalt looking up. There weren't any clouds. Wow. Also, I work on my laptop. I have plenty of work to do without Wi-Fi. If Katrinka's here, which she's not, she's in Oregon with her son, and she wasn't here last year either. Anyway, if she's here, we'll watch some flicks. There's no Wi-Fi, but there's electricity. Not everywhere, though. Some remote places without a lot of refrigerators and infrastructure that needs it got the electricity too. But we don't have lights on. We use a few candles. And recently I've started fasting a day a week, so all I had was water and a little green tea. Nyepi ought to be global. It is so great. I had an unusual experience that started at the tail end of this Nyepi. Here's a little something about it called Day After Nyepi Bloodbath. Katrinka and I each have a Muslim prayer rug on the floor where we step off the bed. We didn't know they were Muslim prayer rugs when we bought them in Penang, Malaysia, from a charming salesman. Each of them has a little semicircle chewed out of it from when Doggett Bandi was less mature and restrained. For years, I've stepped down on mine with no problem, but in the dark, wee Nyepi hours, I woke and rose to pee, stepped off the bed, stood, and lightning fast slipped and banged my head hard against the corner of my bedside table, collapsed on the floor in pain and shock, dizzy, gasping, groaning. As I gained awareness, my right ear seemed to be ground zero of the disaster. I could feel liquid coming out of it and thought, oh no, did I puncture this one too? I'd punctured my left eardrum last fall before sleeping, and a clear liquid kept coming out of it and continued through the night and into the next day, till the bed was soaked the next morning. It took a couple of months to heal so I could hear, swim, and bathe normally again. Back to me on the floor, wondering if I'd punctured my other eardrum. I wanted to just lie there and sleep, but I knew I needed to pee, and so sleeping in this condition seemed unwise. So after a moment of returning to earth, crawled to the bathroom, peed kneeling, stood up, walked back to the bed, holding on to what I could till I was in it. Woke up. Still dark. Wetness. The pillow. Sheet. My t-shirt. My head. All were wet. I still thought it was ear fluid, like had happened before. Carefully walked to the bathroom. I realized I had to turn on the light there. And gosh, I was bleeding. I'd been bleeding for hours. My t-shirt was wet with blood, and there was dry blood too. Ouch, pulling it over my head. Blood dripping as I washed it in the sink. There were gobs of clotted blood in the t-shirt. After a minute, lay it on the side of the sink. Looked in the mirror. Blood on my chest. Half the hair on my head wet with blood, and dry blood places too. Meanwhile, I kept dripping. Not sure where it's from. Ear, head behind ear. I must have been bleeding for hours. Obviously, hadn't lost too much because I wasn't dizzy, and I have lost too much blood, and it was quite unpleasant, as well as life-threatening. I knew I needed to put pressure on the wound. I got a washcloth and tried, but I couldn't tell exactly where it was bleeding. It was my ear or behind my ear. Sat on the edge of the bed, holding the washcloth against it and waiting for 6 a.m. when Nyepi is officially over and we can have activity again. Got into a zone. At 6:15, called dear Cadet, our housekeeper, and told her what was up. Her husband, a driver I've known since we first arrived, offered to come over and take me to the hospital, but I said, that won't be necessary. I hated to bother her on New Year's Day. Normally, people go en masse to the beach to purify, but because of the virus, I don't know what they had planned. Surely special offerings at home. There are offerings every day, so extra offerings and also no coming to work. She comes 3 days a week, but this week we were going to do 2. But today's a double special day. Incidentally, we're required by law to have a housekeeper. Part of getting our residence visa is submitting a copy of her ID card to immigration. She arrived at 7:15. By then, I'd stopped the bleeding with continual pressure and had managed single-handedly to prepare my morning hot water, then drink some jamu, a traditional medicinal drink, eat 4 prunes, an oatmeal cookie, and was drinking tea and reading the news as she walked in. Morning meditation had been cut short by circumstances, shortened to the time I spent holding the washcloth to my ear. Kadek immediately asked if I was dizzy, and I said no. She asked if I had lost consciousness. I said, I don't think so, but maybe for a few seconds. I told her I'd fasted, and she said she thought maybe I just thought I'd slipped on the rug, but really I had fainted. Oh, yeah, maybe so. I never have slipped on that rug. It happened so fast it could have been I slipped, but it could be that I fainted and that smashing my head into the corner of the table woke me up a second later. I remember crying out, taking in that heavy hit, surely one of the heaviest in my life. I laughed, showing her the bloody bed, floor, bathroom, T-shirt. She was cleaning up and I was waiting for 8 a.m. and the hospital to open for regular business. I didn't want to go to the emergency room because I thought it might cost more. She told me that actually this year Nyepi is 2 days. The second one allowing lighting and Wi-Fi, but not going out except to buy food and necessary stuff. She lives 30 minutes from here. She said she was stopped 3 times on the way here by Pechalang, the neighborhood security officers. Not the police, but more important often. She said she'd explained the purpose of her trip, and each time they waved her on. This second day of Nyepi is something new, and obviously in response to the virus. Good idea. I had the last of the leftover oatmeal cooked with banana, dried apricots, and sunflower seeds. We didn't know if I could get a taxi. If not, she could take me in her motor scooter, though I wouldn't wear a helmet with my head like that. I was too weak to walk there unless I had to. It's only 20 minutes away. Kadek asked if I didn't want her to clean some of the blood off me and pointed out it was still bleeding into the shirt I'd put on, a very dark shirt, so it wasn't obvious. She asked if she could bring me another shirt. I told her I wanted them to see all the blood. Used my Bluebird taxi app, and it took longer than usual, but got a positive response half a kilometer away, so I grabbed the essentials, including a face mask, which Philippine neighbor Ivan had kindly given me. Kadek showed me how to wear it, and the driver arrived before I could get out on the street. Only the emergency room was open at the hospital. They immediately brought out a gurney, had me lie on it, and wheeled me just inside the swinging doors. A young woman and a young man with face masks on stood over me. She asked if I spoke Indonesian, and I said I preferred it, but it wasn't perfect, and I was sure her English was better, so whatever she wanted. So we used both. They could see the blood and all. I just told them I'd fallen and that I didn't know exactly what sort of wound I had. They did not ask anything about payment until they'd heard what I had to say, taken a look for themselves, knew there was nothing life-threatening going on. I gave her my card for the hospital, Bali Mandara, and that's all they needed. It will bring up my record there. I was there 2 hours and spent no time to speak of waiting for anything. There was someone with me the whole time. He did the work right there inside the door on the gurney, and we talked some. I had to look a few words up with my iPhone, which was a little awkward, getting my glasses, pulling it out of my pocket while he's working on my ear. I asked him what Mandara meant. It's just in names here, names of new government-related things. This public hospital, the toll road. It wasn't in Google Translate. He said he didn't know. It was something positive. So, turned out it was all ear. Kadek had thought it was head, too, because of all the caked blood. I got 8 stitches. I think 5 in front and 3 in back. He said it was really hard to do because it was uneven. Now I've got an ear wrapped in bandages. They told me not to get it wet and to go to a local clinic for control. This is how they say check up, or in this case, get the bandage changed. There's a nice little clinic, a 20-minute walk from here. Before I left the hospital, the guy carefully cleaned my head and hair off and my neck, so I'd be responsible for cleaning below there. Didn't have to worry about getting it wet or anything. He took me over to where you pay, and I waited a little bit outside, and I paid. And right next to there was a place where a little tiny pharmacy, and she gave me the antibiotics and some ibuprofen they wanted me to take. Taxied home, arriving a little more poor than when I left. The 2 taxi rides added up to about $4. Hospital and medicine in the emergency room, about $45. Super nice, modern, efficient, friendly public hospital. Wow. Kadek was almost finished with the cleanup when I got home. I thanked her most politely and told her to go home. She insisted on watering the front and back garden and was off. I fell on the clean bed and slept a couple of hours. Then I took a hot bath. Felt a little weak, but clean. Used the bed as my desk for the rest of the day.
So, that was Nyepi Bloodbath. Ha. And tomorrow night, things still won't be back together. We're going to back together Saturday. Today is, we're coming to the end of Friday because we're 13 hours ahead of California, 12 hours ahead of New York. And tomorrow night, I'm just going to take off right where this one ended and go right to the end of that first podcast because it's more exciting news about what happened and related things to say about it. So until then, this is DC Poobah of Cuke Audio and Cuke Archives. coming to you from Sleepy Sanur with Doggett Bandita, Feline Cuchita, and dear lovely Katrinka. We're wishing you and yours and all of us a grand awakening.